4 of us constitutes a quorum, so.
I thought,
Yes.
I didn't think Commissioner Nelson was going to be here this month.
First I've heard of it. But if not, then we're it.
I thought he
Okay,
announced
so
it
we
last
still have a
meeting.
quorum.
I don't recall.
Do we have a determination of legal notice?
All items were legally noticed.
And do we have a director's report?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. Just I wanted to update you on what is going on with the fire recovery. We are at, and one of the things that I try to do is I try to give you an update on what types of permits have been issued, applied for, and so on. And going back to our administrative permits for temporary occupancy of RVs, we have received 51 permits and we have issued 45 of them thus far. As far as building permits for the rebuild effort, we have 27 in queue right now. 16 building permits have been issued, and we are giving priority to the fire area. So typically, plan check time takes 4 weeks, possibly 6 weeks. For the Redwood Valley, Burn area, Potter Valley, Willits area, we're looking at 1 to 2 weeks processing time for the building permits. So they're slowly trickling in, and we're trying to get those approved and processed. Let's see here. As far as my understanding, the Army Corps is looking at demobilizing in the next week or so. So they are trying to get those cleanups going through the process. One of the things that the board did on Tuesday is they passed an urgency ordinance, which actually put a date certain there. As far as the private cleanups, they want to try to get everything done and noticed today so that we can get folks getting into the, or finishing up the private cleanup in concert with the public cleanup process. Let's see, the other thing I want to let the board know, or the Planning Commission know, is that part of the overall rebuild process, there is a Redwood Fire Rebuild Expo that's going to take place on March 24th this year at Mendocino College. They're anticipating 30 exhibitors, 7 speakers. It's basically referred to as coming home. So the idea is to have folks in the industry there to help people with ideas, how to do the construction. A lot of it is how to navigate through the permit process, which we'll have our building official there as one of the speakers. There'll be fire safe building and fire safe landscaping ideas, insurance claim discussions, energy efficiency and renewable energy, gray water, water management, co-housing, tiny houses, and just an array of different topics that will be discussed at this building expo. And this will be from 8:30 in the morning to 5 p.m. And this is being sponsored by the Solar Living Institute, and they're working diligently on that. And then I will be attending this evening it's referred to as Senator McGuire's first 60 days of Prop 64. So there'll be a discussion, panel discussion by a number of folks, including the chief of the Bureau of Cannabis Control for the state, the director of the Department of Tax and Fee Administration, and Cannabis Cultivation Licensing Bureau, and so on. And this is going to be, like I said, a discussion, panel discussion. I, along with the planning director from Humboldt County and the ag commissioner from Sonoma County, will be on a panel this evening. And so I just wanted to let the Planning Commission know that that's coming up. And then the board also undertook the discussion and modified the existing ordinance to Class K. Class K was a program that was instituted back in the 1980s, which was really to address how people can actually, and I hate to use the word legalize, but permit structures that couldn't be necessarily permitted under the Uniform Building Code. Now we've had a lot of changes to the code, but primarily some of the issues that were brought up were wildland interface standards, the requirement for sprinklers and so on. And pretty much a lot of the recommendations that came out of the subcommittee of the board were taken into consideration and modified the ordinance. One of the items that was put into the ordinance for discussion, but ultimately the board decided not to go in the direction and not require fire sprinklers for a lot of these buildings. One of the other issues that came up was the limitation of the size of the structures, not exceeding, I believe, 2,000 square feet. And one of the discussions was to limit additions or accessory dwelling units. What the board did is not do any recommendations on ADUs at this time because we don't want to find them later. I'm trying to see if there's anything else.
What was the upshot of the perimeter foundation discussion?
Council, I believe they decided not to put the foundation requirement in there.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, while reviewing California building codes and prepare the actual ordinance for the board, there's discussions about and issues on foundations that are generally very broad, even in the California Residential Code when it comes to foundations. So our existing Class K ordinance allowed for those, and our building official determined to not recommend requiring a perimeter foundation and to leave the requirements as is, based mostly on the fact that the existing provisions in California Code also allow for that.
And so finally, the board gave direction. Staff will bring back a final ordinance at the next board meeting.
Sorry, just to confirm, that was first reading yesterday. Second reading, I believe, is anticipated in 2 weeks' time.
And with that, that'll conclude my director's report.
Thank you. Now is the time for matters from the public. The Planning Commission welcomes participation in commission meetings. This item is limited to matters that are under the jurisdiction of the commission that are not on the posted agenda and items which have not already been considered by the commission. No action will be taken. Anybody care to pipe up? Seeing no one, we will move on to the consent calendar, and there are no items on the consent calendar, so we will move to the regular calendar, case UM 2017-0002.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mary Lynn Hunt, Planning and Building Services. I'd like to introduce to you today Deborah Bieber. Deborah is a planner with our Fort Bragg office, and I believe this is her first time presenting to the Planning Commission. So with that, I'll turn the hearing to her.
Good morning. I am here to present on the Mendocino Inn and Spa's application for modification to their use permit. The original use permit, CDU 886, allowed for the inn. It's a 10 unit inn, and this application is to add a wine bar and open the restaurant that was originally serving the inn customers to the public. There will be no additional construction. All of these modifications are occurring within the inn. The site is located east of Highway 1 and north of Little River. It is 2 acres, and it's surrounded by Van Dam State Park on the east and west. In the north is residential. In the south, there's another inn. The applicant includes the location is conditionally highly scenic, but as I said, there'll be no changes to the inn. The parking requirements for this project are met with the current parking situation. The inn is designated as a Star 1, which allows them to have the 10-person occupancy in the inn, and then also to serve food. All the conditions of the original permit will be still enforced, and we're going to add a condition 12 to the conditions. We have special conditions 1 through 11. Condition 12, we'd like to add and say, unless amended by these conditions of approval, the conditions of approval of use permit 886 are still applicable. So the original conditions are all still applicable. The owner's representative is here today if you have any questions, and I can answer any questions, but basically there will be no new physical development. It's just a change of use within the inn.
Any questions for staff?
Just briefly, were there any letters or any comments that you received from?
No, we didn't get any comments. They were required to get a Caltrans no-fee permit, and they got that in December, so that was done.
Okay, any other questions for staff? We would like to hear from the applicant, if anyone from the applicant's group would care to speak.
My name is Eric Mays. I'm with Lone Mountain Studios. I'm a consultant representing the owners. I really don't have any comments. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have, but I think the application is pretty straightforward and somewhat simple.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you.
You will.
We submitted a memorandum today to include the recommendations of staff, as it was not included in the original report. And so we would recommend adopting the categorical exemption and the use permit modification.
All right, any more discussion for commissioners?
No problem.
Somebody ready to make a motion?
I'm ready to make the motion. By resolution, adopt the category.
Sorry, Deputy County Counsel, through the chair. I'm not sure we technically opened the public hearing.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So now the public hearing will be opened, and any members of the public who would like to speak to this application? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. And now,
By resolution, adopt the categorical exemption and grant the use permit modification, UM 2017-0002, to use permit U 8-86 for the project based on the project description and findings and subject to the conditions of approval in Exhibit A.
I'll second.
And sorry, Deputy County Counsel, just to interject, that is conditions of approval as amended by staff at today's hearing.
maker of the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, second?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Commissioner Warner,
Yes.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Kruger,
Yes.
Chair Holdcamp.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. We will now move to case U 2017-0014.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jesse Davis, Planner 3, County of Mendocino. Today I'm presenting to you U 2017-0014, which is a use permit to formalize an existing short-term rental in a private guest room within an existing house. The short-term rental is defined in the Inland Code under Mendocino County, Section 20.164015, or again, our accessory use chapter. This subject parcel is addressed at 3381 Williams Ranch Road in Willits, California. Assessor's parcel number 147-06511. This short-term rental would comprise the entirety of a partitioned guest bedroom within the owner-occupied primary dwelling unit. These owners have a history of hospitality and resort management, and I would encourage you to review the project description provided by the applicant, which indicates extensive house rules and property descriptions, as well as indications of 3,000 gallons of domestic water storage and electricity provided by a solar energy system. As provided in that accessory use chapter, this use type is permitted within the rangeland zoning district with a use permit. The use permit is only required due to the fact that the parcel does not have frontage on a publicly maintained road. This parcel is accessible via Black Hawk Drive or County Road number 371, which connects to William Ranch Road, the private road. Again, this is very similar to previously reviewed applications. I'd encourage you to review conditions 8 through 14, which have been applied particularly to vacation home rentals. By resolution, we recommend that you adopt this in the categorical exemption and grant use permit U 2017-0014 based on the above project description and finding the condition of approval within Exhibit A. I'd be happy to address any questions you have with regards to this vacation home rental and the use permit entails. Thank you.
Any questions that anyone has?
Yeah, I do.
Yes, go ahead.
I think we have in the Exhibit A, the condition 8 limits it to 6 individuals, but the staff report limits it to 4. And that staff report comment is on the
Thank you.
page 2.
That is correct. Thank you for identifying that discrepancy. It would be the indication of the staff report, which should be reflected in the resolution. I will update that to ensure that change.
Great.
So that'll be 4 people. That would be the maximum.
6, excuse me.
Oh,
It would be
6
6
would
people.
be-
I will ensure that it'll be reflected in
just
both the
didn't
staff
get which way
report
we
and the
were
resolution.
resolving it.
My apologies. It should be 6 on both.
6
I will
on
ensure
both.
that it will be corrected. Thank you, Commissioner Warner.
Any other discussion? Then we would like to hear from the applicant if they would like to speak.
Good morning. I'm just delighted that this has finally come to the Planning Commission. I've been waiting for this for a long time, and I'm definitely here to answer any questions or concerns you may have.
Could you just state your name for the record, please?
I'm Caroline Norris. I'm the applicant, and this is an adventure. It's just marvelous. I would like to emphasize that I have collected and paid to the county $8,271 in TOTBID taxes, which I'm very proud of. I have put together a wonderful, smooth word-of-mouth business. We have had guests from all over the world and continue to do so. They are so pleased to come here. They're telling their friends and family. A number of our guests have no idea what's here. They're just coming because they've been recommended to us personally for our level of hospitality and our dedication to that and our enthusiasm for our part of the world here. I am a native of Northern California, and I'm deeply, deeply in love with this whole region. So we have people who come here and they are very surprised, and it's such a pleasure and an honor and a privilege to introduce them to our version of the region and to send them to places that they particularly will love. And we do that. We have all these people who are enchanted, and they go to the botanical gardens and they ride the skunk train and they spend lots of money at the restaurants and they're thrilled. And they're in love. So they're telling all of their friends and family, this is building, and we feel like ambassadors. We feel like a Chamber of Commerce and a visit us opportunity has opened up. So yeah, they're spending a lot of money here, and they're thrilled, and they're bringing more people. This is such a privileged position to be in, and to infect other people with our enthusiasm. So, yeah, do you have any questions for me?
Anyone have any questions for the applicant?
I don't.
No, thank you.
No.
Well, thank you so much. I want to thank you for this and for bringing this to the table finally. And thank you, Jesse, for your hard work.
You're very welcome. Commissioners, I would like to note, however, brought to me by the attention of County Council, that there are 2 issues I'd like to address with both in the resolution. The first is number 2 on the resolution, which is the current nuisance findings. I'd like to indicate that those are potential nuisances which would be addressed by these conditions in Exhibit A. This is simply a typo from another resolution. Additionally, on the Exhibit A itself, for number 20, it reflects the applicant shall pay all required uniform transit occupancy taxes in accordance with Chapter 520 of the Mendocino County Code. That should read Chapter 5.200. 20, excuse me.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew
Yes.
Kudrowski, I would just be more specific as to the wording of number for the nuisance findings to say that the proposed project was determined to have some potential nuisances with regards to noise. However, the conditions of approval address such concerns. and remove the words have been indented.
Anything else? Okay, then we will open the public hearing on this item, and if there are any members of the public who would like to speak to this item, please come forward now. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. Is it you again? No?
5th District, you know.
What can I say?
I move the recommended motion with the changes suggested by County Council.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Commissioner Kruger?
Yes.
Commissioner Hall?
Yes.
Commissioner Warner?
Yes.
Chair Holdcamp?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay. So now we come to, what are we calling this? Case OA 2018-0003.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mary Lynn Hunt, Chief Planner, Planning and Building Services. Before you this morning, we have Ordinance Amendment OA 2018-003. This is an amendment to the Mendocino County Code, Section 20.243070, Cannabis Facilities under the exceptions as it relates to manufacturing within agricultural preserves, and also an amendment to our Williamson Act Policies and Procedures Manual. So we were directed by the Board of Supervisors to amend this ordinance to, and if, under exceptions, there was a statement, and on page, under the ordinance amendment 02851, it talks about your exceptions for 20.243070. And this is removing item number 5, which reads, the site is not within lands contracted under the Williamson Act. This is for existing packing and processing facilities that were established for projects such, and we'll use the term wineries, and this will allow for the reuse of these facilities for cannabis processing, packaging, manufacturing, and also for the distribution of those products also from that site and in conjunction with manufacturing and processing. Prior to that, it was stated that you could not do manufacturing under the Williamson Act contract lands. However, this will remove that requirement, and it also adjusts what's going on in our ag policies and procedures. And I do want to make a little correction. So on page 16 of the policies and procedures, so you can see the highlighted area in red, and I'll read that. I'll read the whole section. The cultivation of cannabis, including the planting, growing, harvesting, drying, curing, grading, or trimming of cannabis in a natural state. And then underlined, we've added, cannabis processing and manufacturing facilities shall, and we're adding in some words, excuse me. It'll say cannabis processing and manufacturing and facilities, comma, including distribution facilities in conjunction with processing and manufacturing, comma, shall only be permitted pursuant to the provisions of Mendocino Zoning Code Chapter 20.243. So does that, would you like me to repeat that? Yeah. Okay. So cannabis processing and manufacturing facilities, and this is the new wording that we're adding into the highlighted area, including distribution facilities in conjunction with processing and manufacturing, comma, shall only be permitted pursuant to the provisions of Mendocino Zoning Code Chapter 20.243. Okay. Okay, you got that? All right. So this would, as I say, amend our Chapter 22.43, striking out item number 5 under the exceptions, and then adding into the ag policies and procedures. And with that, we recommend approval of this. The next step would be that it would go to the Board of Supervisors for their review and approval. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Again, just on comments, we got the copy of the letter from Flo Connor.
Yes, yes.
Have you had any other?
No other, and thank you. No other comments have been received other than the letter we received this morning from Flo Connor. Flo Connor is the property owners of the old Fetzer facility out off of Bell Arbs in Redwood Valley.
Right.
And this would direct their project. Do you have something you want to add? Okay.
The Deputy County Counsel, Matthew Kudrowski, just wanted to kind of go through a little further in terms of what's allowed and not allowed by these changes. So we've taken, the direction is to take out the item number 5 from the Flocana procedure, from the exceptions section, in part related to the Flocana project. In doing that, we reviewed the Williams-Sonoma policies and procedures. And those, from when they were first amended for cannabis in 2017, still stated that manufacturing was not a compatible use. So in trying to address that, we've created the changes to that section to say that it's only compatible as long as it's allowed by the zoning code. So it goes back to that overall chapter 20.243, and you can see there, well, that manufacturing is allowed in certain situations. The first situation is that processing and manufacturing are allowed in certain situations. Table 1 is the first place to look in 20.243, and that outlines certain districts where things are allowed. And processing is allowed with different levels of permits. In that table, manufacturing is generally limited on its own to certain zones like rural, community, and industrial. Secondarily, the chapter has provisions that talk about home manufacturing and cottage industry, both of which require a home. So those instances would also allow for manufacturing there. Thirdly is the exceptions section that we're dealing with here. So manufacturing would be permitted under that section, but only with a use permit. So those are the 3 different areas you're looking at. Other than those areas, currently there's no manufacturing allowed without one of those 3 different allowances. So if people wanted to just currently wanted to set up an independent manufacturing facility on a Williams-Sonoma contracted land that was not a cottage industry, that is not presently allowed. The board has given us direction to look into that, and we're still doing that as part of our review for our future amendments. So I wanted to go through the logic and the reasoning behind how there are limits here when this reflects back to the zoning code from the policies and procedures.
So if I may, Mary Lynn Hunt, I also want to address the CEQA. And with that, it's been determined there is an exemption, a general rule exemption to this change. It would not require any further review.
Any questions for staff?
Yeah, I don't know that this impacts this particular change, but I'm curious about distribution facilities. They're included here only in conjunction with processing and manufacturing. Is there any place, is a distribution center, a standalone distribution center, allowed anywhere in the county?
It can be within, I believe it's industrial, and I'm not sure about commercial. I can't remember the chart, but yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the distribution you refer to as whatever is manufactured there has to get off the place, right?
That's correct. Coming into and being taken away, yes.
And to tag on to that, we added the distribution language after the memo was published just to cover our bases. Distribution has been evolving at the state level, quite frankly. They've gone from one single type of just what we would look at as a pure distribution facility and only allow those where we have fleet and facilities and good access to roads. They've since added transport only and self-distribution. So you're looking at more limited numbers to what they have on site. To cover these facilities, we want to keep it broad because their level of distribution may be larger than self-distribution as defined by the state, but still limit it to what's related to either the processing facility or the manufacturing facility for what they are doing themselves. So people can take in and come on and leave the property, and we'll see how specific or less specific the state gets as we go forward.
Any questions for staff?
Yeah, a follow-up on that. The state at one point was considering, and I don't remember what happened, because I haven't followed those so much, but that distribution vehicles would need to be armored or guarded. Do you know what is the outcome of that?
I do not. I think there
We
is
have
some
a public
specific
commenter who does.
requirement, and I think we have someone that will speak maybe to that.
Any other questions for staff? Then we will open the public hearing, and any member of the public who would like to address the commission.
Good morning, commissioners, and thank you for an often unappreciated but necessary part of government. I compare you to being on a school board. You have to make tough decisions, and you're not always the most popular person in the room. However, I've watched 2 hearings already this morning, and government is efficient. Thank you very much. On the Flow Kana situation, this is a unique situation. There's a couple things I want to address, and Commissioner Warner, I appreciate your questions, because they're the reason I've been involved with Flow Kana going out there. I've been out there, I'm going to guess, 20 times as they've been remodeling. And as the planning department has been out there working with the remodelization, I've been out there for the purpose of security, of safety and security, not just for Flow Kana, but for the neighborhood of the Belle Arbs Road that leads to it, for the other businesses that are in the area, the winery and distillery that are in the area. Obviously, public safety and security is my concern. Flow Kana is an interesting animal. I'm going to guess they've spent several $100,000 on recommendations that I've made that weren't required by planning and building for safety and security. Armored vehicles are one of them. We've had great discussion about armored vehicles. I've arranged for the CHP to meet with them to discuss the licensing, and they have purchased a vehicle, and it's I'm going to say one of a kind in California. They seem to want to comply with the law. And then to the naysayers on marijuana cannabis, let me say something very unique about this. One word that you have not heard today is cultivation. Everywhere else in Mendocino County, people want to cultivate marijuana. Flow Kana doesn't. Flow Kana wants to collect it and process it and distribute it. So in other words, their business model is not going to add a single marijuana plant to the plant count of marijuana, of Mendocino County. It's merely going to allow the small-time farmers to safely have their product distributed to where the money can be generated and taxes can be paid and people can pay their mortgage. And so it's a very unique model. I'm not aware of any other model in California like Flow Kana. Fortunately, they certainly have the resources to go along with the recommendations that we're making. I walked it yesterday, and it was the second to final walk. I'm going to walk through to make sure they're doing everything I've asked them. So I'm here as sheriff to tell you that these people have followed every recommendation. They're not trying to cut corners. They haven't told me that there's any place that my deputies and I can't go. They've welcomed us there. They want to have patrol vehicles there as much as possible for the safety of their employees. So I guess if I was going to do a rah-rah for a cannabis organization, which I haven't said I'm going to yet, the closest candidate would be Flow Kana, because they've done everything I've asked. And they understand that safety isn't just for their employees and for their resources, their money. They've met with their neighbors. They understand safety involves the neighborhood, the community as a whole, and I'm not going to sit here and say anything bad about them, because everything I've asked them to do, they've done. So I take any questions if you have about public safety, but I assure you, I've asked them, I've spent hours with them, if not dozens of hours, and they've complied. So I'm looking forward to see if this business model works, if they can actually make money from all the money they've invested, but that's their business, not mine. I just know that they're doing everything we ask. Thank you.
Any questions for Sheriff Ullman? No. Okay. Yes.
Good morning. My name is Amanda Ryman. I'm the head of community relations for Flow Kana, and I'm also a Redwood Valley resident on Belle Arbs, so I also appreciate the conversations about safety and security. And Flow Kana is pleased to support all of the amendments that have been presented by staff. Regarding the amendments to the Cannabis Facilities Code, we feel that this is common sense and that the remaining conditions under the exception language will provide and promote land preservation, and we expect no negative impact to agricultural preservation as a result of removing A5 from the list of requirements under the Cannabis Facilities Code. Regarding the amendments to the Policies and Procedures document, we do believe that this brings cannabis in line with how we treat other agricultural crops in Mendocino County, namely grapes as they're being processed into wine. And we feel that it's appropriate that Mendocino would use its local authority to revise the implementation of the Williamson Act in a way that will work in harmony with both the cannabis industry to achieve the goals of both agricultural preservation and supporting the nascent cannabis industry, which, because of large regulatory barriers, the smallest of providers really need all the support that they can get. We also feel it's appropriate for this document to defer to the Cannabis Facilities Code for proper alignment with business type and zoning. Flocana really appreciates the attention paid to this issue and the sound amendments across two separate but related county statutes. The outcome of these changes, should they be approved by the Commission today and then by the Board of Supervisors, will be the result will be a stronger Cannabis Facilities Ordinance, a more well-coordinated Williamson Act implementation, and a move to, as I said, move cannabis more in line with how we process grapes into wine, which we know is a very important part of the agricultural fabric here in Mendocino County. And we really hope that as cannabis moves out of the shadows and into regulation, it will also become a very important economic part of this county. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak on this topic? Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the Commission.
I don't really have any trouble with this one. It makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Williamson Act is not going to be subverted in any way. I would be curious to hear from Commissioner Nelson, but lacking him to hear from today, it seems to me we could approve it.
So, anyone else?
I have nothing to say.
It all looks in order to me.
Is there a motion?
Let's see, what do we do here?
Everybody's looking at me.
It's your turn.
All right.
I didn't want to have a monopoly on motion making today.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we make the recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to accept the application, the OA 2018-003 application for the modifications.
Second.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, just to confirm that includes modifications introduced by staff at today's meeting.
The modifications presented by staff for the agricultural preserves.
Okay.
And I'll second if there wasn't a second. Did you second?
I don't remember.
Okay.
So, just as a note to clarify, Deputy County Counsel, there's a resolution prepared for this item, and what we'll do based on the motion, and if it's approved, we will just attach it in the revised version of the policies and procedures to that based on the motion.
Okay.
Commissioner Hall,
Yes.
Commissioner Kruger,
Yes.
Commissioner Warner,
Yes.
Chair Holdcamp.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Quarter to 10 people. So, wait, somehow I got my agenda buried here. Oh, there it is. Are there any other matters from staff?
No other items.
Okay. Any other matters from commission? Okay, I guess we're done.
This apparently is a record-breaking.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Very
Sorry you
exciting.
drove all the way, Molly. You could have phoned it in.
It was exciting. And we needed the quorum, so that was fine.
I actually really love it when we don't have really controversial things.
I